Called my boyfriend a discount dad for his constant lectures and judgment. Now he's ghosting me and everyone thinks I'm immature. I, 18F, have been dating my boyfriend, let's call him Jake, 24 male, for a little under a year. At first, things were really good. He seemed emotionally stable, mature, grounded, all the things I thought I wanted after dealing with a lot of chaotic guys my own age. We met through mutual friends and clicked pretty quickly. He said he liked how mature I was and how together I seemed for my age, which felt nice to hear, especially since I came out of a very abusive household. I won't lie, I felt flattered at first. I thought we had an understanding that yes, I'm younger, but I'm still an equal in this relationship. But over the months, that dynamic has really started to shift, and now I'm not sure I'm being treated like a partner at all. For some background, I've been diagnosed with endometriosis and POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Both conditions affect my daily life in big ways. I deal with chronic fatigue, dizziness, and a lot of pain. There are days when I physically can't get out of bed without struggling, and managing my symptoms takes a lot of mental energy on top of everything else. Jake knows this. I was upfront about it from the beginning. And at first, he was really kind and supportive, but over time, he started acting like he knows better than me how I should be living my life. It started small comments about how much I sleep or how I manage my symptoms, but now it's like I can't do anything without some kind of lecture or judgment. Some examples: if I sleep in to manage a flare-up, that's not healthy. You need structure or you'll never be independent. If I get food delivered on a day I'm too fatigued to cook, you're wasting money and being lazy. If I cancel plans because of pain, you'll never build resilience if you give in every time. Even if I lie down after standing too long and feel dizzy, a POTS symptom, he tells me I should push through because resting too much makes it worse. He also makes comments about my outfits being too revealing or not appropriate, and when I tell him I don't want unsolicited advice, he says he's just trying to help me grow or teach me how to be an adult. But I am an adult, just one managing 2 chronic illnesses on top of everything else. Things came to a head last week. I was having a rough few days, a bad endo flare, zero energy, and could barely sit upright for long. He came over and saw that I'd been resting most of the day and immediately launched into another long-winded talk about discipline and life habits and how I need to stop relying on rest as a crutch. I'd had enough, so I said, not even shouting, just tired, I didn't agree to date a discount dad. If I wanted someone to supervise my life and tell me how I'm failing, I'd move back in with my parents. He went completely silent. Left my apartment, and didn't talk to me for 2 days. When he finally did, he said I crossed a line, that he was just trying to help, and that I had no idea how hard it is to support someone who won't even try. I was honestly stunned. Now his friends are messaging me saying I'm selfish and too immature to handle a relationship with a real adult. His mom, yes, his actual mother, messaged me saying she's disappointed and that Jake has always been the kind of guy who lifts women up. I just want to be clear, I do try. Every day is hard with these conditions. I work, I cook when I can, I handle my appointments, I advocate for myself in medical systems that constantly brush me off. I don't think I need to be raised by a man who thinks being 6 years older makes him my life coach. I care about him, but I also feel like I've been slowly shoved into the role of student or child in this relationship, and I'm starting to wonder if that was his intention from the beginning. Update 1. Especially after what just happened. So I've been really sick the last few days. Like, properly sick. I was diagnosed with a bone sinus infection, and it's knocked me flat. I've had constant fevers, stabbing pain in my face and head, nausea, dizziness, I can't keep much food down, and on top of that my POTS symptoms have been way worse than usual. I've mostly just been in bed, barely functioning, just trying to rest and not pass out. Because of all that, I had to call in sick to work these last 2 days. I work with food, and there was just no way I could safely be around customers or food prep like this. I can barely even stand upright. It didn't feel like I had a choice. This afternoon I got a call from work telling me I was fired. No warnings or anything, just said they needed someone more reliable and they can't keep me on if I can't show up. I get it, I guess, but it still crushed me. I've always tried to show up, I've never taken advantage of sick days or anything. It felt like everything hit at once. I've only taken about 4 sick days in the entire 2 years. I've worked for this company. Jake came over not long after. I told him what happened. Told him I lost my job, that I'm sick, that I might need to go to the hospital because I'm starting to feel seriously not okay, and his response was basically, well, maybe if you took better care of yourself, this wouldn't happen. Then he said something like, you still could have gone in, people push through being sick all the time. I tried to explain that it's not like a cold, this is a bone infection, I literally couldn't walk from the bed to the kitchen earlier without fainting, and I work with food. He just kept brushing it off like I was being dramatic. He told me I'm always sick and I never fight through it. That turned into a full-blown fight. He started yelling, full volume screaming, pacing the room while I was just sitting there crying and asking him to stop. I was already feeling like absolute shit and I couldn't even get a word in without him talking over me. At one point I tried to speak and he got up close, and he raised his hand like he was about to hit me. He didn't, but he looked like he wanted to. And that scared me more than anything he's ever said. That was it for me. I ended it. We're done. I broke up with him then and there. Told him to get out, that I'm not doing this anymore. I don't care how sick I am or how hard things get from here, I'd rather be completely alone than sit there sobbing while the person who's supposed to care about me screams at me for being unwell. Right now I'm still in bed, fever's high, heart rate's not great, and honestly I think I'm going to the hospital soon. Something feels off in my body and I don't want to wait until it's too late. With POTS and now this infection, it feels like everything is just piling on top of me. I'm genuinely scared, not just emotionally but physically. My body feels like it's breaking down. Though I wanted to take the time to write this update, I am using text-to-speech, so I am so sorry if it's a bit jumbled. I'm tired of begging someone to believe me when I say I'm in pain. I'm tired of being talked down to, managed, lectured, and guilt-tripped when I literally need help. I didn't ask to be sick. I didn't ask for endo, or POTS, or a sinus infection that knocked me flat. I've done everything I can to keep pushing through, but it was never enough for him. But it's over. I'm scared, and sick, and jobless, but I'm also finally out. And that has to mean something. Update 2. Last time I was here I was sick, jobless, fresh out of a bad relationship, and honestly convinced I'd peaked at being a human potato sack. But things have flipped around a lot faster than I thought, and I finally get to share a happy update instead of a sad rant. Health stuff first. I went to hospital. Cheers to everyone who pushed me to stop being stubborn. The sinus infection was grim but antibiotics sorted it. Now I don't wake up every day feeling like my skull's in a vice. POTS and endo are still the forever companions from hell, but with the infection gone, my baseline feels way more manageable. Cooked myself a proper dinner the other day without needing a nap halfway through, which for me is like running a marathon. My friends have been absolute legends. One mate accidentally bought me 6 kilograms of potatoes instead of 1 when grabbing groceries for me, so I'm now the proud owner of Potato Mountain 2025. Another mate sat with me in the hospital waiting room and we entertained ourselves by giving all the vending machine snacks aggressive ratings. Chocolate got a 10/10, those weird dried out muffins got a -3. It made something scary feel kind of funny. I've also joined an online support group for chronic illness and honestly it's been life-changing. They just get it straight away, no judgment, no lectures. Plus the memes are painfully accurate. If you can't laugh at your broken body, what can you do? Money/work side, getting fired still stung but I've got Centerlink set up now. Not rolling in riches, but I can breathe. Applying for casual jobs closer to home, found one literally down the street, so we'll see. In the meantime I've been selling random stuff online. Marketplace buyers are a different breed of human. Someone actually tried to haggle on something I listed for free. Like, mate, what's your endgame? Mental health. I started seeing a counselor. Best decision ever. I'm learning how to stop feeling guilty for resting and how to say no without apologizing like it's a crime. She calls it boundaries, I call it telling people to rack off nicely and finally not letting idiots make me feel bad for having a nap. Now the juicy part, the new guy ! Honestly, I didn't think I'd be here already, but I've started seeing someone new. We've known each other for ages and it just kind of shifted into something a bit more romantic. We're just taking things slow, but honestly it's been really lovely. He's sweet, he listens, and he doesn't treat me like I'm broken or a child. We went out for a walk the other day and he brought snacks in case I got dizzy, and not in a patronizing way, just thoughtful. Feels weird and the best way to not be constantly bracing myself for criticism. I can tell him how I feel without being talked over, corrected, or treated like a child. Honestly feels like I've stumbled into some alternate universe where partners are nice and don't yell at you for having a nap. Little wins, found a GP who actually takes my POTS seriously, miracle worker, figured out pacing better so I don't crash as hard, and I splurged on a blanket that's basically the love child of a cloud, and a marshmallow. 10/10 would recommend. And Jake? Blocked, deleted, history. No drama, no closure talks, no nothing. Just blissful silence. It's amazing how much mental space you get back when you're not constantly bracing for a lecture. So yeah, smile, life isn't magically perfect, but it's lighter, happier, and way less potato sacky. I'm safe, laughing again, and excited about what's next. And to everyone who backed me when I was stuck in that mess, thank you. You gave me courage to leave, and reminded me I wasn't asking too much by just wanting kindness. If you're stuck where I was, being spoken down to, made to feel like a burden, or treated like you need a babysitter, please know you deserve better. So many people reached out to me saying they were in the same sort of situation as me, and reading what I wrote made them some form of closure or validation that they're not the only ones, and that's honestly being so special for me to hear. I'm so glad my story is able to bring people some form of peace. But seriously, if I can leave and end up with potato mountains and snack-carrying sweethearts, you can too. Update 3. Okay, so apparently when you throw the phrase discount dad into the universe throws back plot twists like confetti, because the last 2 weeks have been some kind of chaotic sitcom where the main character is chronically ill, slightly feral, and powered almost exclusively by potatoes and spite. But it's mostly good chaos for once, the kind where you go to bed smiling instead of clenching your jaw so hard your teeth feel like they're filing for workers' comp. First big thing, I accidentally got a job by admitting I can't stand up. I went into this tiny cafe literally 2 minutes from my place because I was craving a hot chocolate that tasted like actual chocolate and not brown sadness, and the owner, her name's Kira, She's a genius who wears Doc Martens and has a buzz cut that could cut glass. Clock the compression socks peeking out under my jeans and wet pots? Like we were in a secret club. Turns out her brother has it, she knows the drill, and I swear I could have cried then and there just from someone not needing a PowerPoint presentation on why I occasionally become a fainting Victorian child. We got chatting, I told her I'd been canned from my last job for daring to be contagious around food, and she offered me a few short shifts to see how we go with breaks and a chair and me sipping electrolytes like a fancy lizard. I said yes because I still like being able to pay rent and also the cafe air smells like butter and happiness. First shift, Kira rolls out this barstool throne like she's presenting Excalibur, puts it behind the coffee machine, and goes sit whenever your heart tries to reenact drum and bass. She also printed a big "We are a disability-friendly workplace, please don't be a dingus about it" sign and stuck it up next to the croissant warmer, which made me want to knit her a friendship scarf on the spot. I did 3 hours, paced my energy like a fussy Victorian governess, and it was actually fine. I didn't face plant. I remember the difference between a flat white and a latte. Australians, you know, we will riot if you mess that up. And one of the regulars tipped me a chocolate frog because I told him honestly I was new and possibly operating at 70% brain power. I walked home afterwards doing that floaty proud thing where you're exhausted but you didn't abandon your body on the floor of a random establishment. And then I ate leftover roast potatoes because on brand. Health check just so no one panics, the bone sinus infection is still in the get thee behind me phase. Finished the antibiotics, had a follow-up, all good, skull no longer feels like it's going to unzip itself. My new GP is still a saint. She referred me to an autonomic clinic in the city for POTS, and we've started messing around with meds properly instead of me just chugging salt like a dehydrated mule. We're trialing a Vibradine, which I immediately nicknamed my tiny speed limit, and I think it's helping because I stood up in the shower this morning and my heart didn't go way like a toddler on a trampoline. I also got proper compression tights that are both medical and deeply unsexy, and I swear when I pull them on it's like shoving a warm octopus into a Pringle can, but once they're on my legs are like, oh, circulation, what a concept. Pain-wise the endo is being itself, but my GP put me on a wait list for a legit endo specialist, not just someone who thinks period equals Panadol and a wheat bag. I'm weirdly hopeful for the first time in forever, which feels like tempting fate, but I'm rolling with it because manifesting is free. The potato saga took a turn. Remember the 6 kilograms? It multiplied. One of my neighbors is this retired man named Rob who has a beard that could house a small bird if he wanted to, and he saw Potato Mountain through my kitchen window and waved, and next thing I know he's knocking on my door with a bag full of rosemary from his garden and announcing we're doing a building-wide bake-off. Nobody asked, he simply declared it like a monarch and we obeyed. 3 apartments turned up with trays. There was a Spanish tortilla that could make you propose marriage, there were smashed potatoes that had more crunch than my ex's ego, and I made rosemary garlic potatoes that were 90% butter and compliments. Someone brought a bottle of wine and we ended up sitting on the stairwell eating off paper plates and telling stories, and I had that fuzzy feeling like, oh, I actually live in a little community, I'm not just a sick girl in a box scrolling the internet. I sent a plate down to the woman on the ground floor who just had a baby and she texted me, "This is the best contraception you could have given me," which I will be thinking about forever. The new guy. Okay. I caved, and I'm giving him a name because calling him new guy feels like he's an unnamed background character in my life, and he's not. He's been in my friend group for ages, so we didn't do the stranger danger dance, and his name is Mason. This man. I don't know how to explain it other than my nervous system goes quiet around him. Like my body isn't plotting my demise and my brain isn't scanning for the next snide comment. He reads, he cooks, and he asked me how I like my tea and then wrote it down in the notes app like he was studying for an exam. We did the world's gentlest date, which was basically walking at the speed of an elderly duck to the park and then lying on the grass while he pointed out ridiculous cloud shapes. He brought snacks again, and before you go, oh no, the patronizing snackman returns. No. He asked me the day before what actually helps when I wobble. I told him salty chips and cold water because I am a refined queen, and he showed up with exactly that plus a little ice pack and a scarf because it looked windy. He also asked, "Do you want me to check in if you look dizzy or leave you to handle it unless you ask?" And I said, "Ask first, always," and he went, done, like it was the easiest thing in the world. At one point I did get dizzy, I warned him, we sat, I put my legs up on his lap, he became a human coffee table and did not make a single joke, just kept chatting about a podcast he'd listened to, so I wasn't too focused on my heart being dumb. I could have cried from the absence of drama. We kissed, because I know some of you are nosy, same, and I wish I had a scandalous story, but it was soft and warm and he tasted like salt and apple, and then I had to laugh because I stood up too fast afterwards and had to sit again, which was peak me. He didn't look annoyed, didn't go all you need more discipline, just said, gravity's rude, and kissed me on the forehead like some kind of rom-com we deserve. X chapter, because of course he made an appearance. I had him blocked everywhere, but apparently someone told him about the hospital and the firing and the general my life did a barrel roll, and he sent a handwritten letter, like actually handwritten, in cursive, which would have been charming if it didn't read like a TED Talk titled "How You Can Be Better by Being More Like the Version of You I Made Up." He did the fake apology where he wrote "I'm sorry you felt hurt," which is not an apology, that is a linguistic wet wipe, and then went on about how he only wanted to challenge me to grow and miss the girl who pushed herself. There was a paragraph where he suggested a schedule for success that included a 6 a.m. alarm, a cold shower, and no lounging after 9 a.m., which I will be sending to my pot's heart rate monitor so they can both laugh. He ended with "We make each other better," which is funny because I got better the moment he left my lounge room. I didn't reply. I did text one of our mutual friends, "Please remove him from the grapevine of my life," which she did like an absolute champion, and I took the letter and put it with my Centerlink paperwork, which is to say, in a folder labeled "Admin I will only open if threatened." There was one weird thing where he showed up downstairs outside my building 2 nights later and buzzed my intercom. He tried "It's an emergency," which, "Sir, unless you are on fire, no," and I said "You need to leave or I'll call the police," and he said "I just want to talk," and I said no, and then I called Rob with the beard because he is enormous and terrifying in a cuddly way. Rob came out onto his balcony and just stared at Jake with the silent wrath of 1,000 disappointed uncles. Jake left. I logged it with the non-emergency police line because my counselor said document everything, and then I put a sticky note on my doorbell that says "Deliveries welcome, men who think they're life coaches are not." It felt silly and also made me feel safe. Mason came over later and installed one of those little door alarms that makes a beep if someone tries to open it, without a key, and he taught me how to change the sound to something obnoxious, so I picked a noise that sounds like a robot sneezing. It's surprisingly comforting. Speaking of the counselor, she is still a wizard. We talked about how I keep trying to preemptively prove I'm not lazy by doing the most and how that's basically me auditioning for love in a way I never had to, and she made me do this exercise where I wrote out "rest is a skill" on a sticky note and put it on my kettle. Now every time I go to make tea I look at it and go, "Fine, I won't mop the ceiling today," and my whole nervous system unclenches by half a notch. She also got me a medical certificate to pause job search requirements with Centerlink for a bit so I can stabilize without the weekly "prove you applied to 10 jobs or we'll smite you" email, which is the sexiest thing bureaucracy has ever done for me. The cafe is going well enough that Kira offered me a permanent casual spot with a set roster and the world's most comfy hoodie that says "staff" on the back in tiny letters, which tickles me because the last place acted like I was some unreliable gremlin. Kira also emailed me a thing called a reasonable adjustments plan, which is just a fancy way of saying you're allowed to sit and drink water. Please don't die, but having it in writing made my little gremlin heart feel very seen. She told me if any customer is rude about my sitting I'm allowed to direct them to her and she will politely eat them, which is customer service I can get behind. Also, a girl came in yesterday and saw my compression tights and whispered "I have pots too," like it was a scandal. Then she pointed at my salt sachets and we both grinned like thieves. I gave her an extra chocolate frog. Hot solidarity tax. There was one night that nearly broke me but also made me realize my standards have changed forever. I had a nasty endo flare that came out of nowhere, the kind that makes your vision pixelate and your hips feel like someone has replaced the joints with hot coals. Past me would have apologized for existing, run a bath, tried to hold a conversation while breathing through it and probably ended up fainting in the hallway because I didn't want to ruin the vibe. This time I texted Mason "Bad pain, not up to hanging, see you when I'm a human again," and he replied "Do you want company or space?" And I said "Space please," and he said "Love you, you've got this, I'm dropping soup at your door and leaving." He did, I cried into the soup, and then I slept for 12 hours like a cat. No drama, no guilt. I woke up to a text that just said "Proud of you for resting," which felt so weirdly healing I had to sit there like, oh, this is what it feels like to be cared for without needing to perform wellness. Oh, and because fate has a sense of humor, guess who finally texted me again? His mother. I kid you not. She sent a paragraph about how Jake is a passionate person and you misunderstood his intensity and how discipline is hard to receive but makes us stronger. I typed and deleted 5 different paragraphs before I landed on "Please do not contact me again," and then my counselor high-fived me via telepathy. I blocked her. I thought I'd feel guilty, but instead I felt like I'd turned off a noisy fan I'd learned to ignore. There's a handful of small things that feel big when you've been living in survival mode for ages. I bought a ridiculous yellow raincoat because I always wanted one and my mother would have called it impractical, and then it rained and I looked like Paddington Bear's chaotic cousin walking to the bus stop and I didn't even care that my hair frizzed like a startled dandelion. I taught myself to make gnocchi from scratch with the potato army and it was ugly and perfect and I inhaled it with butter and sage while watching a nature documentary about octopuses who build gardens. I sat outside at sunset with Rob and his Rosemary and we watched a rainbow bend over the car park and for the first time in a long time I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. No lectures, no adult babying, no raised voice, just the quiet satisfaction of a day lived within my limits without hating them. If you're still reading all this unhinged rambling, hi, I love you, thank you for yelling at me to go to the hospital and for calling out the discount dad thing for what it was. I don't know how to explain how much it changes your brain chemistry to have strangers on the internet say you are not asking too much. I'm not a project. I'm a person. I don't need a mentor boyfriend or a mother-in-law apprenticeship. I need someone who asks what I need and believes me the first time, and a job where a chair isn't a moral failure, and a community that will show up on a Tuesday evening with Rosemary and a story about the magpies nesting in the jacaranda. Life is still very much not a straight line. I still have days where my blood pressure dips and my brain fog is like wading through soup and I cry because the fitted sheet won. But when I zoom out, I'm standing on my own 2 feet more often than I'm flat on my back, I'm working a little, laughing a lot, and kissing someone who makes me feel like rest isn't a crime. Discount dads can stay in the bargain bin. I found full price kindness, with receipts and a return policy if it ever stops fitting, and I'm never going back. Update 4. The universe heard me say life is finally chill and immediately said, oh sweetie, let me add a subplot, but for once the plot twists are the kind where you laugh mid-chaos and then realize you didn't brace for impact the whole time. Tiny miracles, big weirdness, and one incident that ended with Kira wielding a croissant like a weapon of justice. Medical circus first because my body loves a theme. I went to the autonomic clinic and did the tilt table test, which, for the uninitiated, is basically being strapped to a very serious ironing board and slowly rotated like a human kebab while people watch your heart go lol no. The nurse had the soft voice of a kindergarten teacher and the efficiency of a pilot, and she said you may feel faint and I said Queen, I live there. We started flat, I was like this is fine. They tilted me up, my heart rate did a trampoline routine, my vision pixelated, I got sweaty in the least sexy way, and then a doctor popped up with a juice box and a textbook pots which made me want to cry and also propose marriage to the juice. I didn't, because boundaries, but I did have this weird warm wave of validation where my whole brain went oh, so it's not in my head, it's in my blood vessels. They tweaked my meds, kept the avibradine, added midodrine when I need it which I've nicknamed my tiny legal shoulder pads, gave me a printout that wasn't just drink water, lol, and a physio referral for graded exercises that don't involve me passing out like a Victorian novel heroine. I walked out blurry and proud and a little sticky from the juice, and the nurse squeezed my hand and said, you're doing everything right, and it rearranged something in me in the best way. Then the endo specialist appointment finally happened. She was one of those women who looks like she could fix your taxes in the morning and climb a mountain in the afternoon and still make a stew that cures your sadness. She listened. Actually listened. No just Panadol, no have you tried yoga, just a clear plan and space for me to be scared. We talked surgery. It's on the cards. Laparoscopic, excision, proper photographs, proper pain management. I asked a million questions because if something's going inside me with a camera I would like to be the director, thanks. She didn't flinch. She said, you deserve relief. I wanted to hang that sentence on my wall. We're aiming for about 8 weeks from now, which feels both far and close. I'm assembling a post-op nest like I'm building a fort in primary school except this one is made of marshmallow blanket, snack rotation, and a spreadsheet Mason made with tabs labeled soups, shows, and remind her to sip water. He asked what helps when I'm groggy and I said cold applesauce, heat pack, and no one asking me to rate my pain like it's a trivia night, and he wrote it down. He also asked if I wanted him there for the pre-op appointment as a second brain or if that would make me feel observed, and I said come, but be quiet furniture, and he said I can be a very handsome chair, and then he actually was. My friend from the support group is coming too as my designated excuse maker if the system tries to rush me, because we've all learned the dance. Work turned into a sitcom episode called Disability Awareness but with pastries. There was a man who walked in wearing a suit that screamed I've never had a bad day because my body does what I ask, and he looked at me on my barstool throne and did that little scoff some people do when they think they're subtly being a jerk. He ordered a long black and then went, must be nice to sit down at work, which, sir, must be nice to not have your heart cosplay as a drumline. I opened my mouth and then Kira materialized like an avenging barista goddess and said, very sweetly, we're a disability-friendly workplace. If you don't like that, you can take your attitude to the cafe down the road, they have chairs too. He went all blotchy and tried I was just joking, and Kira said same, but then turned the sign around so it faced him. We are a disability-friendly workplace, please don't be a dingus about it. The two tradies behind him snorted into their muffins and one of them gave me a little nod that said we've all met a dingus. I swear I fell a bit in love with my job all over again. We ended up talking after the rush and Kira asked if I'd help her write a proper accessibility blurb for our website and socials because who better to tell us what not to mess up. We sat at a table with her brother on FaceTime chiming in, and we came up with a few simple lines about pacing, quiet hour mornings, and you'll never be asked to explain why you need a seat. Then she said, do you want to invent a menu item for Dysautonomia Awareness Month? And my soul did a cartwheel. I present to you, the Potato Toasty. Rosemary smashed potatoes, cheddar, caramelized onions, a hit of salt because branding, on thick sourdough. $1 from each one goes to Dysautonomia support. First day it was on the board, a girl came in, saw it, and whispered no way, like she'd spotted a rare bird. She bought 2 and we did the secret pothead nod, postural orthostatic tachycardia, calm down. There was, of course, the X cameo, because if my life is a soap, he is the character who refuses to die in the explosion. He tried to come into the cafe on a Tuesday, which, rude, and Kira clocked him from across the room with the kind of slow blink cats do before they wreck your furniture. I felt my whole body do that frozen prey thing and she put a gentle hand on my back and said, do you want me to handle it? Which was a gift, because my fight or flight had gone on strike. She walked over, told him calmly that I had no interest in speaking to him, that he needed to leave, and that if he didn't she would call the police and have him trespassed. He tried the I just want 5 minutes and she said I don't hand over my staff to men who just want 5 minutes, and let him out with a smile sharp enough to slice a bagel. I stood behind the coffee machine with my hands shaking like I'd accidentally mainlined espresso, and then I cried in the staff bathroom for 3 minutes and then made a flawless flat white, which I think is the textbook definition of resilience. I called the non-emergency line again and updated my report, and the officer on the phone said, "You have enough to apply for an AVO if you want." I went straight to the courthouse the next morning with my friend from group because she knows the forms like the back of her hand, and I told a kindly clerk everything, hands clammy, voice firm. Interim order granted. I walked out with a piece of paper that basically says leave me alone or there are consequences, and I did not realize how much air I'd been missing until my lungs suddenly showed up. Mason didn't say finally or good girl or anything that made me feel like a kid, he just said, proud of you. Want a celebratory chip? And I did. I wanted 12. On the home front, the Stairwell Supper Club is now a weekly thing because Rob with the beard decided it was law. Someone got a little Bluetooth speaker, there was a night of baked gnocchi, I am now the gnocchi goblin and I will not be accepting criticism, and the new mum downstairs shuffled up in slippers, handed me my plate back, and said I ate your potatoes at 3 a.m. while feeding, and for a moment I was happy to be alive, which should be on a billboard somewhere. Also, the building has acquired a cat. No one knows who owns her, but she is clearly owned by the entire block. She is a glamorous calico with one ear that looks like it was negotiated off in a knife fight, and she answers to about 9 names. Rob calls her Duchess, the teenage boy on level 2 calls her Biscuit, I, of course, call her Spud. She has decided my doormat is her nap spot between the hours of 1 and 3 p.m., which means I now open my door like I'm defusing a bomb so as not to spook Her Majesty. She comes in for exactly 2 head boops, screams at my tap until I produce a saucer of water, then leaves like she's off to a board meeting. She is my patron saint of unreasonable demands and I love her. I had one of those days that would have sent me into the shame spiral 6 months ago and instead turned into a weirdly triumphant montage. Rental inspection. Words that make my nervous system go clank. My energy was already low, and old me would have tried to clean the skirting boards with a toothbrush while feigning behind the couch. New me wrote pacing is a verb on my hand, texted Rob to borrow his long-handled duster, which he calls Excalibur, and set a timer for 20 minutes on, 30 minutes off. I sat to fold things, I ate salted popcorn between tasks like a race car in a pit stop, and when the agent came, she clocked Spud asleep on my bedsheet like a queen and said cute cat, and I said we share custody, and she laughed and ticked boxes and then complimented my ridiculous yellow raincoat on the hook. I did not die. I did not apologetically tell her my medical history to preempt imagined judgment. I closed the door after she left, lay on the floor, and sent Mason a photo of me giving a thumbs up from the tiles like some kind of triumphant fish. He replied with a sticker of a sloth wearing a cape and the words domestic goddess. One of my favorite bits lately was an accidental date that solved a fear. For the first time since the hospital debacle I rode a bus by myself. Sounds tiny, was huge. I've been avoiding it because the last time I fainted near public transport the driver looked at me like I'd spilled a secret. This time I planned like a general, electrolytes, compression tights, still a warm octopus in a Pringle can, still worth it, salty chips, my exact stops written down. I told Mason not to hover, just to be on standby. I got on, tapped my card with Barbie-level concentration, sat in the priority seat with zero shame, and I did not implode. The world stayed the right way up. I got off 2 stops early because my body said enough, and I sat on a bench under a jacaranda and cried for exactly 30 seconds because my brain finally got a memo that said you can do things again. Then Mason showed up because he'd happened to be nearby, which absolutely means he hovered from a distance like a gentle hawk, and we split a mango ice block and talked about nothing important at all. He's been gently, steadily human this whole time in a way that makes me realize how low I'd set the bar. Tiny snapshot, he came over with 2 packs of those stick-on cable clips and organized my kettle cord because he noticed I always catch it when I'm dizzy. He sends me recipes labeled minimal standing or sit-down chopping. He told me he gets overwhelmed in supermarkets sometimes because the noise and lights scramble his brain, and I got to be the calm one, the person who says do you want to leave or do you want me to talk you through 3 items, and then we bail, and we left our trolley middle like bandits and went home and ate toast. We take turns being the low spoon. I didn't know relationships could feel like a relay where you pass the baton of who needs tenderness most right now without anyone dropping it and sulking. My counselor is still doing sorcery from her chair. She asked me to write a post-op manifesto which sounds like a punk album but is actually a list of what future me is allowed to do and not do. Top line, you are allowed to heal slowly without proving your worth by carrying a laundry basket 2 days after anesthesia. I stuck it to the fridge. She also had me practice how I'm going to tell people no visitors if I'm not up to it without drowning in sorries. I tried it out by telling Rob he could not bring his famous rosemary-laced roast potatoes the day after surgery because my insides might revolt, and he saluted and said he'd schedule a potato parade for day 4. Having people who hear no and don't argue is like finding a hidden room in your house. I keep wanting to invite everyone to stand in it with me. Oh, and because the universe likes to keep me humble, I had the classic Australian moment, magpie swoop. Picture me, the chaotic cousin of Paddington in my yellow raincoat, minding my business under a tree, when a bird decides my head is a crime. I ducked, yelped something that was not elegant, and a stranger across the road yelled watch your head. Which is both unhelpful and very endearing. I walked the rest of the way home with Spud following me like a small disapproving chaperone, and then I sat on the couch and laughed until my ribs hurt because if that had happened 3 months ago I would have added it to my list of why the world is hostile and now it was just a bird with poor boundaries. Relatable. There's still rough bits. My body still invents new ways to be inconvenient. I still have afternoons where I stare at the wall because my brain fog is the consistency of mashed potato and I have to set alarms to remember to drink water like a needy houseplant. But the ratio has changed. There are more good moments than bad, more voices that say rest than try harder, more chairs that appear when I wobble and fewer people telling me chairs are moral failings. I keep thinking about that tilt table juice box and how stupidly emotional I got over sugar water, and I think it's because for the first time in ages I'm being handed things that help without being asked to perform gratitude for a basic accommodation. Like, yes, thank you, but also this is normal and I deserved it all along. Discount dads, if you're reading this from the shadow realm, please know we are thriving without your schedules for success. My schedule now includes naps, potatoes, and kissing someone who says gravity's rude and means it. I'm building a life that fits me like those ghastly compression tights, a bit of a squeeze getting in, profoundly supportive once I'm settled. See you on the other side of surgery. I'll be the one in the marshmallow blanket throne eating Pot's Tato Toasties and overseeing Spud's hostile takeover of the building.